What's going on, everybody? Hit pause back for the next part of this tutorial, and this is where we're going to have a little fun, I think. We're going to paint the thing. Now, before I do that, however, there is something that I do need to do, and that is a scale check. According to... Let's check our unit setup and whatnot. Let's see where we're at. So 1 unit's 100 inches. What I kind of want to do is, there's a couple ways I could do it. I could merge in a weapon, or I could export this and check it inside of UDK. I'm gonna do that method. So I'm just gonna export selected here, and I'm going to actually put it in my UDK. Actually, I need to do it in the development source here. So rats game content weapons, and I'm going to make a new folder, hunting rifle. Alright, and I'm going to call this hunting rifle scale test. Okay, and I'm going to make it an ASE. I don't want to make it a FBX quite yet. This way I know there's no weird issues. Now let me launch UDK here. Should take just a second. Alright. Go ahead and size this into a position, so come on. Alright, let's pop open the content browser. Let me go down to weapons here. And what I'm going to do is import, and let's go to recent places. Okay, we'll call this WEP hunting rifle mesh and scale test. Alright. There she blows. Looking just fine. So now what I want to do is I want to throw it in the world. So far the scale looks okay, but I'm going to check it against, I don't know, I'll check it against the M6, the AK-47 here, against that pickup mesh. If anything, it's a little big. And I was over here feeling like it was a little small. What I kind of want to do is check against the triggers. Now the triggers feel roughly correct. I'm trying to think how the hand is going to fit. It's actually, yeah, it's, the gun's a little large. What I would need to do, just kind of why I tend to want to put the pivot at the trigger, because it makes it easier here. I could just line those things up and scale it down. I'm kind of thinking, because I got to remember that the hand, you know, my character's hand is this sized for this gun, so it's important that this fit well in his hand. Okay. I'm thinking I could go a little bit smaller to probably there. He should be able to grab that just fine. Thinking that will be okay, but I can size it again once I get it to his hands. I just want to make sure that it's going to work out. Now the thing is inside of Max here, I'm already kind of like, I can't get closer without near clipping and stuff. So I'm actually going to go ahead and paint it at this size. Alright, so let's just get ready for it. Okay, so here we go to my Mudbox folder, and this is going to be hunting rifle to MB here, and we'll make it an OBJ for Mudbox. Export and done. Alright, let's go ahead and open up Mudbox. Go ahead and close down UDK. I don't need to save anything. Actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and save the package just preemptively so that I don't have to do that again while I wait anyway. It should be down here. So we'll save that. Alright, now I can close UDK. Incomplete. Okay, what I want to do is get all this into view so you guys can see all my tools and everything. And let's make a new layer. Go ahead and paint with black. Grab my pen tab, and let's just take a look here. We'll go layers and okay, our paint layer. Okay, I think the resolution seems okay, but notice what I was talking about earlier. See that? Remember what I was saying about how cylinders and long, thin triangles don't want to paint nicely? That is what I'm talking about right there. If you look at the wireframe, you can see where these are cutting off. They're cutting off right at these edges. Okay, but you can also see that that doesn't happen right around the segments. Okay, right here it paints fine. Right here it paints fine, but right here it does not paint fine. Okay, big difference. I really wish they'd fix that. Around here it's going to paint fine because there's all kinds of cross segments. Okay, look right here. Look right here, I can't paint right there. Notice this hard edge right here is actually that hidden edge. It's that diagonal. Okay, I'm going to get it on every single one of these. See that? I should be seeing this, you know, a nice even, you know, based on the randomness of my brush, but I'm getting instead this hard line. I can paint on one side of it eventually, but it's only when the paint applies up here does it just kind of bleed over to there. So I need the model to be higher res. So if I go to mesh and do the add subdivision level options and uncheck everything, what I can do is just keep hitting Shift D. Okay, and once I do that, okay, now I can paint here. See that? I've added all of these cross sections here to combat that problem, and now my paint is applying great all over the place. Alright, I'm not going to have any issues painting here, but I still may not be able to do the barrel all that well in parts. You can see that it missed right there. Okay, see how it misses every couple of spots? It makes a hard edge right there. Now when this happens, you have one option. You have one option and one option only. Just going to go down this line manually. Okay, and I'm going to ring that. And see what I'm doing with the sections here? I'm making tons of segments. Actually, you know, let me not do that really quick. Let me go ahead and do that. I'll call this rifle paint prep. Okay. So the thing is that they're going to have the same UVs, so whatever I paint on this model will appear clean on this model. This model can stay at its current resolution. This one will get the additional segments. Okay, so you ring that and then connect those. Okay, I'm actually going to do it to this part of the body too. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, it depends on your computer. If your computer's, you know, really underpowered, you want to back this off just a little bit. You don't really want to go too crazy. And you only need to, like I said, make a couple of cross sections to really basically do this. So let's go try to make them even or so. It was working out fine here when I resed it myself. Here's going to be a little bit difficult. I'm going to go ahead and isolate this really quick. This will be a slight bit of difficulty, but I'll just do it anyway. Okay, and I want this piece. Alright, I'm just kicking these up so that I don't have any problems. That should be okay. And you can see that my mesh, you know, has 12,000 polys for literally no purpose whatsoever. I mean, that's not going to do me. I wouldn't bring that into the game at all. I mean, it's not that it wouldn't work, because it's only 12,000 polygons, and the game can handle a lot, but the engine can. But in reality, I just don't need it. So what I can do now is just select this, delete it. Okay, and see, I brought in the new mesh, and the paint's still there, and it's still there in the same correct spot. Okay, so let's shrink my brush, and let's see what happens when we paint now. See that? Major difference. Major difference. Right here. See? I can paint all over this thing. And you can see the wireframe. I can also kick it up just a little bit more, you know, bring it to 100,000 polygons, and I'm going to have one hell of a clean time painting this beast. Okay, I shouldn't have any problems, and I wasn't having problems around here anyway. If I end up having problems, I can just go back to the mesh and redo it, basically, and blah blah blah. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so we're done. Thanks for watching the painting part of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Just kidding. Alright, so let's see what we're going to do now. Alright, we're going to make this a base layer, base color. I'm going to go with dark, but not black. Not black. Very close to black, though. If I check the numeric inputs, you can see that I'm at 0.05. Okay, in fact, I'll just stay at 0.05. Oh wait, no, you can't see that, can you? Yeah, 0.05 here in the V for value, hue, saturation, value. So very close. And what I'm going to do is flood paint layer. Now, if you're using a Mudbox version earlier than say 2014 or I think maybe 2012, you won't have flood the paint layer. If you really want to do this, you're gonna probably want to just import whatever color you want, like just make a black or a very dark like JPEG. Okay. All right, now that's the base. I'm gonna do the plastic, and I'm gonna try to find that very off color. Okay, it's a little more blue. It's quite a bit less saturated. I gotta pull this into the. I'm using a kind of a dumpy monitor, so colors look a little weird in the corners. Okay, thinking it's a little less green. It's gonna be a little lighter and a little less saturated. We'll try that. Okay, now what I'm doing here is just very casually. I can go to flat lighting here. I'm very casually just marking the plastic. Okay, just marking it. All right. Now what I do is you hit Alt-T, and that will turn this guy into its wireframe version. So I can hide the base here, and you can see now. And I can hit W to get rid of the wireframe, and you actually have to right-click. Actually, I don't think I can do that. Yeah, I can. And hit the grid here. Okay, now my brush, just hit 1 again. I don't want the stamp image. I want a very hard fall off, and I'm just going to boost up the size real huge. Okay, and just paint on each one of these sections to fill it in. Okay, now my spacing is really wide, so I'm just going to drop that in, so I barely got to move the brush. Any recognizable shapes as pieces of the plastic I'll hit, but I'm also looking for the actual plastic, like where I've dropped the paint down anyway. I think that's about it. So it's Alt-T again and brings you back to the mesh. Okay. And notice I don't have back here. It's good. And notice I have a very, very clean, sharp, change here. And that's important because it's going to look better. Now the bottom, oops, I did miss a piece. So sometimes I'll do this. I'll just shrink the brush and I'll mark an X. And I'll come here and I'll just look for that. Right here. Okay. The same way comic book artists mark areas for fills. Okay. I've also got this here. All right. So there's the plastic part. Now this doesn't have to be plastic. This could be wood if I wanted to. I also think I missed the channel. And the channel is this section here. Now I can't see that. If I wanted to, I could hit V and select these. Okay, this is where I got to be careful. I can't hit the other piece. Okay, and then just hit H. Alright, so you can see that. I can tell now, if I look at the wireframe, you can see that it's not missing anything. So then you just hit U to bring that back. Okay, so everything's black but the plastic, and that's pretty much what I want, so there isn't a whole lot left to do. That's the good thing about this kind of gun. And I don't, you know, this could be kind of good or bad. This gun doesn't have a lot on it. It's very plain. The plastic is just a solid plastic. It would have a noisy bump on it, and I'll show you how I do that. And then the barrel and the other pieces like rubber and metal, it'll have some bump details. But to be honest, there's not a lot else that really needs to be done. Now, because I've up-resed it, I am going to be seeing this facet factor here, because I up-resed it without adjusting the smoothing on it, you know? Okay. So if I'm going to, you know, sculpt in a little bit of a better cut here for the normal maps and things, I'm going to do that separately from this. Okay. So you can see this already looks like a decent rubber here, because it has a very widely dispersed specular. And if I look at the material, you can see that the specular here is practically the same color anyway. Okay. Unfortunately, the only thing I can't do is use a specular of colored. Well, I can, but because I can multiply it. And unless I bring in a full color specular image, I'm wasting my time anyway. So let's do the specular on the metal. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this spec base, and I'm going to keep it in the diffuse channel. Now, the reason for that, I'm going to paint with white. The reason I'm keeping it in the diffuse channel is just so I can see it. Okay, I don't need a really big brush. I want to use a crazy stamp, and I want to get quite a bit of spacing here, and I just want to go down the length with a noisy brush. Okay. The other thing I want to do is take, if I'm just holding V, I want to hide the plastic and the rubber. Okay, just going to paint along there, and I'm just going to hide that. All right. Remember, metal is highly specular. I'm going to undo that because I don't want to go and hit that piece of plastic just yet. Metal is very highly specular. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the magazine as well, because this piece is metal. And what I want is to fill it in quite heavily with black. I'll go ahead and keep that piece right here metal, as well as this. This piece is metal, so just fill it in. Okay, and notice I'm not filling in like this. I'm not filling in too full white. Okay, I want a little bit of breakup. Alright? But a ton, not a ton. Mostly white. Okay? Mostly white, but some breakup in there. Also notice I'm not trying to touch the inside here. Now this here I want to pick up full light, so I'm just going to keep going until it's completely filled in. Okay, this piece here is in fact metal. Okay, the bottom of the magazine is actually not metal. It's plastic. But I'm not concerned that much about it. Okay, I'm getting pieces on this piece. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and hide this piece of plastic. Now sometimes it's wise to create an exploded view of the weapon where the parts are separated, because like for instance, right here I can't really get to the bolt that clean unless I do something like this, and then you can do Control Shift I, okay, then H. Now I can see this. Okay, very slick looking. I don't mean slick as in good, I mean like very, 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 very white. Okay, just a couple of bits of missing white. And I just hit U to bring everything back. Okay, I'm going to hit 6 and just paint on this piece of plastic to delete all that. I'm also going to come here with 6 and I'm going to mark an X. Okay, and then hit Alt T, hit A, and then just turn my camera in here. So with the erase tool, okay, I get rid of that because that piece is plastic on the bottom here. Now there is some I'm missing on the sides, so let's go ahead and take care of that real quick. Okay, Control Shift I, H. Okay, I need a very small brush to first delineate where this is, so I'm just going to go like this. I believe that's one piece. Okay, I want a like a shape on here. So I make like a wavy line so that I can recognize it when I go Alt T and hit this view here. Okay. Sometimes it can be hard to find it, to locate where it is, but usually it's possible. Worst case scenario, sometimes you may want to paint like a pink on there or something crazy. Okay, now this here, I actually I want this to be like a black void, okay? Because this is like the inside. So I'm not going to erase, I'm going to paint with black, but to paint with black, I'm actually just going to hold Control. Okay, let me undo that because I accidentally hit the piece of plastic. Now it's taking me a little bit longer to do it because my brush is still noisy and spacey. But I don't want to make a change to the brush just yet, just in case. Okay, so that should be pretty good. Alright, so you can see how I cut that black out. So now that'll just look like emptiness, which is what I want. Okay, so let's just hit U. Could probably do that here too. So let's do this. Let's hide the bolt. Okay, we'll hide the mag too. And what I want to do, actually, to be honest, I remember where it is. It's up here and it's backwards. Okay. When I get into Photoshop, that can help, actually fix that part up. But you can see that it's pretty much like solid black in there. Okay, because I just crunched everything down into that one little spot. So when the bolt gets pulled out, it should be okay. Alright. So that is the base of my specular. I will actually go ahead and make the trigger metal as it is. Alright, and now what I can do is I can just move this to specular. Okay, and you can see already, it's actually going to be easier if I go page down to the original version where it looks more smooth. Okay. And if I move the lighting around just by holding L, you can see that there. And now what I can do is give it a little bit of just kind of weathering kind of a feel. So I'm going to go ahead and get the metal back. Just the barrel for now. Not including the bolt or anything. Okay, and Control Shift I to invert that, and then H. And I'll make a new layer and I'll call this Scratches. Okay, and if I hit 2 for projection, I go to Stencil. I've got quite a few. These are just PNG files. Okay, so I've got this scratch image PNG file. It was just sampled from a scratched up metal. That's all. I just want to use tiles. Okay, and I can bring that down just a little bit. I don't want a very huge brush. Okay, and now I can just kind of project this around onto here like that. Okay, now I'm just going to stop there because what I really want to do is do that here because it's going to be much easier and I don't have to deal with the unwrap. Now it does give me the seam, but I can repair that later if it's noticeable. Okay, I'm just looking for spots that have the lighting on it, and I'm just going to hit across those. And you can always move it and add a little bit more. So you can double it up. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I don't want to hit the plastic though. Okay, if you want to make it more or less scratch, just move the stamp and then apply it down again. You can go lighter for some secondary ones. You can do a new layer to blend. You can do this however you want, really. Shrink it down, do it light. It's real easy. That, I don't know what that is. It's kind of hard to tell some of this stuff. That's plastic. Alright, let's take a look. Let's go find our seam. Now the resolution's not great, Here's the seam, by the way. Like I said, the resolution's not wonderful, but it's the whole weapon is 2048. I mean, you could argue, hey, do a 4096, but we got at some point you got to limit stuff. So what I'm actually going to do is just kind of go around this edge here, like so. Alright, let's unhide everything. And now we can move this to specular, which has got to be unlocked. Okay, that's not going to show up on flat lighting. Now, the actual spec base is a different layer than what I'm about to make here. I'm going to call this S base. This is just, and this is on the specular level. This is just a fill tone here to work against. So I need a black background, right? So that way now I can drop this down, you see what I'm saying, and balance between the scratches and the, see, the scratches are 100%. And the good news is that the barrel's the only metal piece. I mean, it's just, you know, I feel like I'm not like teaching anything here because it's so easy. Like there's just so nothing here to do, you know. That's just the nature of this weapon. But what I can do is do some dirt, and that's going to lie kind of everywhere. So let's do that. Dirt. And we need a dirt color, which is try to find orange and then just desaturate it here. I'm going to go a little bit darker than normal, than I normally would. Okay, randomize, good spacing. However, I don't want full strength. I keep doing that. Then I want to go on flat lighting and look at the wireframe. Now I want to page up to see my wireframe here. Okay, now quite lightly I'm going to paint. Actually, that's going to be on this side. And the areas that I'm painting are the concave parts. You can see the dirt quite a lot easier on this part here. Okay. Tops of things. I'm not using mirroring on my painting because I want it to be different on both sides, even though the weapon was in fact actually mirrored. It's not all of it is going to be mirrored. Okay, just real light, real faint. I'm going to add a bit of a dirt seam here. It's very easy to see the dirt here, okay, but just to illustrate, that ain't that easy to see anymore. And it's going to be like that in the game too. But don't let that trick you into going too crazy with the dirt. Put the dirt how it would look. A little difficult to see. Even for me, I'm sure for you guys. I mean, by even for me, I mean I'm the dude actually, like, you know, looking at the original. There's no, I don't have any resolution compression or anything like that. I don't mean I have the ability to see better than anybody else or anything like that. Even though I do have 20/20 and I always have. Okay, now I'm going to go along the barrel top here. And I'm going to create a little bit of a joint right there. Now the thing about the dirt is I don't want it to go inside the barrel. Okay, and I just want to make it like, you know, every once in a while it's gotten stuffed into the mud. Because, you know, the other thing is this thing's been used a lot. All the weapons in my game have been used a lot. None of them are brand new. Okay, they've been through the ringer. They've been picked, they've, you know, been picked up, dropped when people have died, and just recycled over and over and over again, constantly. That is the effect that I always go for on my guns. If this was a brand new weapon, you know, a showroom floor kind of thing, putting on the store. Can you imagine if they put like a really dirty ass gun on a store shelf? Nobody's gonna buy that. What the hell's used? How am I supposed to shoot any zombies with that? You know? Nobody would buy it. Okay, the bolt itself, I don't really want to dirty up all that much, because if that thing was dirty, the gun wouldn't work. That thing stays pretty like oily clean. I can do a little bit here, but I really don't want to go too crazy with this. Okay. At that point, because it's really, that's not how it is. And now I'm just gonna, you know, use a little bit more pressure in the cracks here. Okay, where the dirt would build up in the corners. It's gonna sit on the top, it's gonna build in the corners, it's gonna be on the bottom just because the gun's been placed down. Dirt basically sticks to stuff. It's not like an it is an overtime buildup, but it's not something that happens naturally over time. If the gun is kept in a non-dirty environment, the gun will not develop dirt on it. Okay, it's like the old, if you remember the old experiment where they used to think that maggots were actually created by the meat. That, you know, when rotten meat gets maggots on it, people used to think that, you know, rotten meat grows maggots, you know, but no, it wasn't until they finally observed the flies laying their eggs that they realized, oh shit, hey look, if there's no flies around, this you know, rotting carcass never develops maggots. Look at that, there's none here. There was actually like a famous experiment. I can't remember the guy who did it. I'm sure somebody knows. But they did in fact discover that. And dirt's kind of the same way. Dirt needs to be present in order to be... Okay, so the handle going to get like a kind of a little bit more dirt. And the reason for that is because of how many filthy, rotten, stinking, hairy, smelly hands have been touching this thing. Also, a lot of rotten hands have been gripping the gun. Okay. Like putting their fingers all over this part. So that's why I'm doing that. And then sometimes I like to do a very, very, very light pressure with a pretty large brush. And what this does is just gives it a, what I call a light dusting. Okay? And I call it that because that's basically what it is. I mean, it's just a light coat of very broad amounts of dirt. Okay, just slightly tones it. Kind of hard to detect that anything's even happening. You can hear my friggin' pen mouse. I mean my pen tablet. It's so scratchy and rotten at this point. I can't fully control it the way I like. It's not smooth, you know. And now there's nothing really wrong with going in and just saying, hey, there's a splotch right there, you know. A little bit of a splotch there, a little bit of a splotch like there. You know, just little spots of dirt, you know, that have been splattered on there. Okay. And the dirt can actually get another treatment when I get the bump map in there, because dirt does fall into cracks, and bumps are cracks. So, or they're lumps, you know, they're either dips or lumps for the most part. And that will affect the dirt too. So if I combine dirt with my bump map, which gets turned into a normal map, I can further sell those details. It helps. Okay, I'm just kind of really lightly going across the middle here. Okay, and again, you know, while dirty, not overbearingly dirty or anything like that. Okay, the lighting has quite a bit to say about this. Okay, my spec base here, need to go back to full strength. I'm done with dirt for now. It needs to be on here. Okay, I need to brighten this bad boy up, make that stand out some. Alright, I can only go so high on the specular here, but once I get into UDK, I will be able to actually make the specular a lot brighter. Alright, let's do the bump map for the body itself, and this is actually going to be really easy, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that. Okay, we're going to do plastic bump, and we'll put it on the bump map. Okay, and I don't know if I have it anymore. It's not here. So let me add a stencil. And noise. Okay. If you don't know how to make noise in Photoshop, filter noise. Okay. And it's full noise, everything dragged up. It's Gaussian, monochromatic, and full power. Okay. So I'm just going to hide that real quick. And what I'm going to actually do is go Alt-T, because I need this to not be stretched. Okay? And all I'm going to do is just hit it here, hit it here, hit it here, 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 and here. I believe here, here, and I think here. The cool thing about noise is it's just single dot pixels, so it doesn't matter how big or what I make it. I can zoom in, zoom out, size it up, scale it down. It isn't going to change anything because it's just a bunch of pixels. To a degree, by the way. You get too close to it, it'll make big pixels. Okay, now if I look at this, okay, it's really, really, really too powerful. So what I tend to do is drop this thing down to somewhere between 1, 2, or 3. And you see what that does? See how nice that looks? And it's clean too. It's seam free as well because dirt was just a bunch of random pixels. Or the noise was just a bunch of random pixels. So you can see everywhere I got no real discernible seams. Okay, you want to argue that that's a seam, you can. And if you do want to argue that, then I'll counter your offer by wiping it out. You know what I'm saying? It's not even consequential whatsoever. The only thing is you can't see this under flat lighting conditions because bump map plays off of lighting. It does absolutely no good whatsoever. Okay. This plastic, however, stays smooth. The metal stays smooth. And the rubber stays smooth. Okay. And by smooth, I just mean the surface itself. It still can have some details, but. So the other thing I want to do is I want to take the plastic here and make a duplicate of it. And then move that to specular. Okay. Because I'm having a hard time seeing. And I'll keep it the color here. I don't really need this. All right. So it's looking pretty good. Lighting is a little difficult here to work with. You see, there's like no ambient whatsoever. I can fix that, but I never do because it's kind of just like not worth it to bother with. Okay, it's better just to rotate your light the way you want it. Okay. And now what I can do, if I want, is have some fun with it. I did promise this would be fun, and so far it's been kind of boring. But let's see, it's not a toast master because it's not a toaster. A toaster. Keep blast radius clear. I got some, like I said, I got some sayings and stuff that I just typed out in Photoshop. There is one thing that I want to put. Two things. In cheese we trust, and a little paw pad. A little paw pad is going to go right here. Of course. Okay. Probably the wrong color, but I don't care. In cheese we trust goes on all my guns. It's on all of them. It's hidden. Some places, sometimes not so well. Again, I don't have the greatest amount of resolution to use. Okay. Let's see. The other thing, see what else I got. Numbers and letters, always handy. Okay, I'm painting it on the diffuse, but actually these are bump maps, by the way. Okay. I'm trying to think. I have another saying somewhere that I'll put on all my guns too. By the way, if you know what movie this refers to, the National Institute of Mental Health, the Nash Institute. Okay. Let's see. I got this logo, and I need the Ratco logo on here somewhere because this was manufactured by Ratco, which is basically the scientist who's put his own stamp on everything. Whether or not you find that amusing or not, it's up to you. But consistency, consistency, consistency also keeps people from stealing my work. Alright. This will be on the right side of the gun. So it's not going to be something that's going to be in your face or anything like that. Okay. Do not sit. I had one that was a good saying. I think it's on here. Here we go. This is going to be right on top. And the scientist found it necessary at some point to deliver this message. So obviously, somebody didn't realize this just naturally. Oh, I wonder what happens if I point this at my face. Okay, I've already got a cheese we trust. I do have some colored bolts and things like that. I do want to also say warning, refer to owner's manual. And again, I'm going to put this on the side. So you're only going to see this if you... Oh, by the way, you notice how like I'm having issues aligning all this stuff? The easiest way to figure out, like I try to rotate it and it's like swinging away from my view. The easiest way to find that is to zoom way out and just keep rotating until you find the center point. Okay? Eventually one of these things is going to be in the middle here. Alright? And then if you hit the stamp again, you get the stamp options. And now if I turn off tiles, there it is. Okay. So a lot of the things on the right side are only going to be visible if you run up to some other player that's using this weapon and take a look at his gun in his hands. Or you really inspect the pickup mesh or something. Okay. Now the other thing we could do is you could put any kind of saying you want, any kind of logo. This is Beretta, not Beretta. I have a Beretta logo, but I'm actually going to go and grab, or at least take a look here for the now Winchester the company can be mad about this and be like, hey, what are you doing? You can't use our logo, you know? I don't have any permission to do this. So, even though I'm admitting it on YouTube like a dummy, I'm gonna steal it, and I'm gonna... okay, borrowing without asking is stealing. Glue! I need glue! Hopefully you guys know what that joke's about. So let's go large here. And what I want to do is I want to use it because I like it. And by the way, this isn't actually a Winchester rifle or anything. But if they're going to get mad about it, I'm going to take it off. That's it. That's the answer. But I have a feeling that they're not going to ever be clued in. So I need to copy the picture. And then I need to go into Photoshop and prepare myself a stencil. And like I said, I don't have to necessarily use the name or anything like that, but I'm hoping that Winchester sees this as me being like a fan and it being like advertising for them. You know? If they don't see it that way and they want to like be like, you owe us $1 million, I'm gonna be like, the game only made $10. Alright, so Control Shift U, Control L, and just bring that to black. Okay. And now what I'm gonna do is not contiguously, I'm gonna select all the white, delete it. Okay, I'm gonna lock the layer, fill with white, and just check it against black. Okay, you can see it didn't come in great. Alright, the Winchester logo itself isn't good. So I'm going to go ahead and repaste that. And now with a higher tolerance, I'm going to select this red here. Okay, make a new layer. I'm going to fill that with white. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part and delete it off of this layer. And there's a much more cleaner version. Now the other thing I want to do is go to Image, Canvas Size, go by Pixels here, and I just kind of want to boost it up. So I'm going to go 1500 by 650. Okay, and refill in the black here, which doesn't matter because I'm not going to show that. Control Shift S. Okay, Rat's Mudbox. I got stencils here, and what I'm going to do is call this Winchester logo, and it's going to be a PNG. Okay, save. None. Okay, then we just come here, add stencil, Winchester logo. Bada boom, bada bing. All right. Now it's slightly huge, and again on the right side of the gun, so slightly hidden. Okay, and I'm not going to get the greatest resolution out of this thing. So, you know, you're going to be looking at the gun like this, none of that stuff's going to be shown. And then over here it's going to have the warning, it's going to have Ratco, it's going to have all kinds of hidden stuff on the other side for fun. Okay, now let's go ahead and put this in the bump map. So we're going to move it to bump map. Okay, and I'm going to put it in the front. So see how it cuts out the noise? Okay, if you look like right in the Winchester part, there's no noise in there. That's desirable. Now the other thing I can do is, and I'm going to want to do this in Photoshop, but sometimes it's a good idea to go into Photoshop. I'm going to sneeze. Okay, now that I've sneezed. I'm coming into Photoshop because what I want to do is I actually want to give myself like a cool little bit of a shape. Okay, so what I do is I need to give myself quite a bit of room here. So I'm actually going to go 2048 by 2048. Alright, so I'm going to put that there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a square selection here. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to fill that with black. Okay, now I'm going to make a circular one. Okay, whoa, and I'm going to fill that with black. Okay, and now I can kind of like line it up a little bit better. And what I could try, this is kind of a cool thing to do, is you can go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to blur it by 16 pixels. Okay, and then I'm going to go filter, sharpen, unsharp mask, and crank everything except for the threshold. Doesn't do anything at this point. Okay, and I hit that again and again, and see what that did to the shape? It just made it more interesting. You know, it rounded out here, kind of bowed it down here, you know. So that's a more interesting shape. Now I'm just going to take this like this, and I'm going to lock that, and I'm going to fill that with white. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I am actually on a sharp edge, and to do that, the quickest way to do that is just to hit it with a stroke. If the stroke looks sharp, everything looks sharp. Okay, everything's good. In contrast to that, I can't do that like that. In contrast to that, that does not look like a sharp stroke, okay? Because it's blurry like that. Okay, if you notice the difference between the two here. Right? So this shape is good. Just hide that effect. I could pretty much crop it down, but if I don't crop it down, I could tile this, but I'm never going to want to tile this out on anything. Okay, this is a one-shot deal. So image crop. Okay, and I'm going to make it a PNG again. And I'm going to call this Winchester logo shape. Now you may wonder, well, why don't you just make this black and this white on there and just make that your stamp, because that's going to be the final result. Yeah, that's good, but then the problem is that I'm stuck with that permanently. You know, I can never just do the horse, okay, because I'm always going to have this black crappy outline. All right, and I can never do this shape on other stuff, because I can put my paw right here and throw Ratco right here. I mean, I could do a lot of different things in there, so anything I want. So let's stick with that. So we're going to add the stencil Winchester logo shape. So now I can scale this up by holding S and middle mousing. Get the angle correct. Okay. Now if I put it here, it's just going to wipe out the logo. So I do need a new layer for this. Below. Alright. And if I hit 2, you see I'm painting with white, but I actually want this to be black. Okay, so it's the opposite. And the other thing I could do is, if I want, I could blur it to make it look more pronounced, but softer. I could attempt to blur the Winchester logo itself, but that looks hideous. The horse, it's pretty noisy. I actually do want to blur the Winchester part of the logo, because I think that's going to look better. Okay. The horse, though, kind of a different story. So what I can do is I can actually throw in a mask here. Hit 1. Okay, I don't want to be on my stamp image. And I'm going to do roughly a 50% and paint that in. Okay. I can erase it here. So if I'm a little more careful. Okay, if I darken it, but not to black, I can tone this down quite a bit. Also, there's nothing stopping me from not using that much of a blur strength. Let's say 0.5, being not on the thing. Okay. Okay. Notice if I go over it again that nothing happens. However, if I just move my view a little bit and then do it again, now it blurs again. Okay. So from a distance it reads, from up close it's pretty ugly because it's very pixely, but it'll work out okay. Alright. The other thing is the paw down here, I want this to be inverted. There is an invert brush. Okay, but you got to be careful with the invert brush, because if you stop halfway like I did and now I try to go back, it's going to invert and then invert again. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have to make sure that your hand and everything is ready to paint the whole thing and keep scrubbing over the whole thing until it's completely done. Alright, and then now I could blur this too. Okay. Alright, in Cheese We Trust, let's see what we get with a blur first. It's not too bad, but let's go back to the mask. That looks much better. Right? Much better. Not so bold. Okay, same thing here. We just want to tone that down, and we'll try blurring just the warning. Okay, I gotta be on the decal here. Okay, that's a little too light for me. I'm gonna try 2. Okay, I'll move the view just to re-trigger it. Okay, so it's very subtle and light. Kind of thinking I'm going to tone down the Winchester just a little bit, but I don't think I necessarily want to go that low. I'm thinking I'm going to go a little bit higher than that. Okay, and I don't want to touch the horse. And the cool thing is that I get, you know, this segment where I go from the noise to the smooth. Okay. It might be a little bold, the whole thing. I can tone that down at any moment that I want. I'm going to try it as is. Okay. Point away from face. I don't want to blur that. That's not going to be correct. It's going to be a sharp thing, but I do want to tone it down, and I believe I want to go quite a bit more than that. Okay, that looks much better. Ratco, same thing. In fact, Ratco is going to get dropped significantly more. All right. Could put a symbol here or something here if I want, like the snake. But the snake would be, he would be like a colored decal. I've only done the bump decals for now. A colored decal needs to go on the diffused layer. Now, the other thing I got in my stamp repertoire is a bunch of like Celtic stuff, and in the Celtic stuff I've also added some floral effects, and there's not a lot stopping me from adding this kind of thing, you know. And I've specifically made sure that these would be able to be like built together, like I could just move it around and join and create like a crazy floral pattern. Now, whether or not I actually want to do this is a completely different story. And I've got, you know, even religious style stuff. Okay, that's a cross. I'm not putting anything like that on here. And I'm not going to do anything like that says like, hey, I'm a friggin' pagan or something weird. And obviously, you know, like that. But they do tend to put these kinds of things on guns. I personally don't have anything like that on mine. But let's just see what it's going to do if I do throw it on. See, it actually looks pretty nice. You know? Actually, I will keep it on there. I do like it. I need to save. Which is funny that it says that because I've never saved this yet. So this is going to be HuntingRifle paint. Okay, the other thing I've got my family crest here, which didn't come out very well. It's got some, I mean, it didn't come out bad, but it doesn't unless it's really high res, it doesn't translate very well into a bump map. So I'm not using that or nothing. Caution hot could be kind of useful. I've got a hexagonal pattern that could be kind of useful because that can be tiled and brought in. For instance, if I'd make a new layer here, what I could do, if I want, I don't know if I want, is just create like a section of it. Okay, then give that a mask. Now in this case I would use solid black. Okay, and just kind of, also I need to make sure that my stamp spacing is very low. Okay, and kind of round this out here. Making a smaller brush allows me to press harder. Okay, and sometimes you may want to use steady stroke so that you can get a nice line and curve going around stuff. Okay, and what I can do is now come in and just trim off, this could take a minute, but trim off the parts of the hexagons that are incomplete. Not all of them are nothing. And the good news is I'm painting on the mask, so I can bring it back if I want, if I make a mistake. So I can go back and forth however I want. Okay, and I actually think that I probably want to have that dip in. Now to lessen this, I can just drag the layer down if I want. Okay, I can also blur it, which probably will be desirable. And then I can make a new layer, use my paintbrush, do a steady stroke. This kind of thing should have probably been built in Photoshop, but I'll show you guys if you don't have that handy or something. If I go to advanced here and I crank up the minimum size and pressure, and I pick a fall off that's a little more round, this is going to be kind of difficult. I got to maintain a single stroke pretty much the whole time. So what I like to do is when I need to reposition my hand, I put the stroke back near the middle. That way I can a little bit more easily reposition my hand with and have some play in the brush. And I'm going nice and slow because I'm nervous. Okay, That kind of thing I would have wanted to do in Photoshop. Okay, this kind of shape here. And the cool thing is I mean, I don't even have to use the hexagons if I don't want. It's just an example. I don't think I'm going to keep that. I would definitely redo that in Photoshop. The other thing I could do if I want is create these kinds of details. Just, you know, using the stamp tool, kind of blasé style. It's not even centered, you know. If I look at the wireframe, I would want to go from wire to wire. Depending on what I really want to do. I was painting with black, by the way, so I should invert that to stick out. So like I said, I mean, the kinds of details you want to put in the bump map are just, you know, so many different things you could do. It doesn't even make, you know, I mean, I got, let's see, where's the center of this thing? I got plenty of symbols here, you know, spider, house, fire, skull, tree, moon, star, triangle. I mean, all this stuff. For instance, this dash right here can be useful. You know, the minus sign that I got there can be useful for a variety of different things. You know, I could make it larger, and I've got this big panel that I could use here, you know, for something. I wanted to have a warning there or something. You know, or just, you know, create different types of symbols. I mean, you know, all kinds, anything I really want to do at this point. I'm reaching at this point because, to be honest with you, there's nothing I need to do. That's the dumb thing. Like, and again, I do apologize. This gun has no need for any of this crap. Really, it doesn't. I'm just showing you guys some techniques for the things you can do going into Photoshop. Again, I've got, you know, I thought I had a bunch of letters. What do I have here? Oh, I've got sci-fi paneling, which is just black lines. Okay, so I could go like this, and then I can say, hey, you know, starting from here, I come down, and then that goes this way. This is sci-fi. This would not be used in this. And then, you know, it does something like this. You know, so I can design that easy. I've just got myself a bunch of, maybe you can see that better here, just a few shapes, a straight line, one with this, short, long, and then this kind of thing here. You know, so if I wanted to, I could say, if I wanted to evenly space these, I can just be like, hey, I just want that and that. And then if I want to go further, I can just match it there. Be like, hey, and then I want one over here. You know, I mean, it's so easy to do. It's nice. It's a very handy thing for, like I said, for sci-fi stuff. I've got like grading paneling. This could be handy for this spot. Oh, it's not going to erase because I have the stamp out. For this right here, see how it gives me a very like geometrically cool type of shape. I'll show you how I made that really quick, and then I'm going to end the video. That'll be the last thing I'll show you guys how to do, how to make really cool bump maps. They're quite simple. Make a shape, whatever you want the shape to be. Depending if you want it to dip in or come out. I'll show you guys both methods. Dipping in, I start with white. Okay, just double click it. Okay, do inner glow. In this case, because I'm dipping in, I'm going to make it black. Set this to normal. Okay, go from the center and do technique precise. And now you can say how far you want it to go in. And that's what that shape was. Right there. Okay. This one, if I lock it, I'll fill with black. And I'll just take this effect and drag it holding Alt. And all I got to do is just change the color to white. Okay. Now, if you want the, if you only want it to stick up and not to, because this is actually going to go from white to black. If you want to change that, just fill your base color with gray, with 50% gray. And now it'll only bulge out. That's it. This could be handy for, say I want to, let's see what kind of brush do I got here. I just want a standard ass brush. No scattering, no shape dynamics. Spacing very, very low. Okay, now you can get off my screen. For instance, I may want to have the bumps, let's make a new layer here, have this kind of shape. Actually, I need to make sure that I go just one stroke across, and then I take this and boom. Okay. So I'll say PNG, I'll call this medium line bump. I don't know what the freaking hell you'd call it, to be honest. And then we come here, and we add that medium line bump. Okay, go back to my tablet here, and let's see, where would I want that? I don't know, like right here or something. See how it creates a sharp bump like that? Okay. If I hold Control, it actually makes a just solid shape because I filled that entirely in with black. But if I wanted to dip this in, I didn't want to have to worry about making a new stamp. I could just invert it. And that'll dip in. Okay. If I wanted that to be more smooth, I would simply change the from precise to soft. Okay, pull that in like that. Okay, PNG medium line bump soft. And add that. Boom. Okay, let's check out the difference. Wait, I didn't actually pick it. Okay, see the difference? Acts a little weird in some regards. Okay, it's just based on the fact that the way this shape is, it's actually correct, by the way. It should look like that according to this. If I want to fix that, I actually need to not use as big of a size. Okay? But I can also use inner shadow with no distance. Okay? To help it. But it's a little hard because, see, if I say normal and I go with saturation of 0 here and black of 50%. Okay, let's try that. And I'll just override it. Okay. That did actually, I believe, override it automatically. Let's see if that looks any better. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you can see the different types of bumps that you can get, and they look good, you know, I mean, they look good. Depending, as long as your resolution is good, you should be fine. So, undo, undo, undo. Now, I personally am going to use this. I like this, actually. I like that. I don't know if I want to really use... I don't really know if there's anything else I want to do to it. I mean, it's not like I can't... That one dips down, so I could take that, dip that up. I mean, you can combine shapes, you know, to make weird stuff if you want, but like I said, I'm just reaching at this point. There's nothing I really want to do anymore, so for the most part, I'm gonna, you know, be getting rid of any of that weird crap. I'm probably gonna get rid of this. I may go further with this, but hopefully you guys found that interesting. I do actually need to... The cool thing too is that if I pick this again, I can actually say use tiles. Now, you notice how it's not tiling very close together? That has a lot to do with this distance here. If I want them to tile closer, I need to actually crop this closer. Okay, and boom, they're already closer. See what I'm saying? So now I can add these however I want. Some of them go off the edge. So I probably need it to actually be a little bit more narrow. Okay. And I can even, you know, not touch it all the way here and it won't look that bad. If I mess with the lighting, because there's not a lot of specular on this rubber, it's kind of hard to determine what's going on here. But I've corrugated it in a sense. Okay. I could take my base and adjust that and kick it up so you guys can actually see what it looks like. But this is not how it's going to be or nothing. Okay, I don't want the rubber that shiny. I do actually want it really dull, but maybe like 5%, so it's a little bit more. Okay. And if there's stuff I don't like, you know, like a little bit of, oops, wrong layer here, I can just wipe it out. Or mask it. You know, if I don't like this, I can just wipe that out. I actually like that notion there. Other shapes like this here. Let's find the center here. Pick it again to get the options. This shape right here can actually work out pretty well too. Especially if it's blurred. And again, blur can be finicky. Like if I go like 5, that's actually quite a big blur. Okay, just move it and then do it again. Move it and do it again. If you do 100, by the way, you're officially just getting rid of it, you know? Okay, so I got like, it's like a feathered dip. All right. So like if I did it to like right here, I'd want to make sure that I paint thoroughly to not get any lumpiness. I do also plan to throw some sculpt action on this guy. Okay. And now I blur it. You know, that doesn't line up. I would need to make a shape that lines up clean, but just illustrating, you know. And I could probably kick that up. The shape doesn't match, but like I said, I just keep going until I get it nice and feathered. And I can also use the like a race tool set to really large and a very soft fall off, very large. Okay, and I can just kind of tone it back, probably a little bit less large than that. Like so, and then blur it again. I need to make sure I don't blur the other side. So I mean, you could use bump maps for this kind of thing. I'd have to tune this and tweak it and keep blurring and try to feather it off. Probably do something in Photoshop, but over time it would fix itself. But this goes bye-bye. I never planned on using that, you know. So, yep, I need to end the video because it's going on kind of long. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot you can do, especially with a combo of bump and specular. You can go pretty crazy with it. But like I said, I'm pretty much there isn't just not a lot I need to do. Oh well, I did mention that I was going to, and I'll probably do this later. But the dirt, right? Let's go back to dirt. What did I end up hitting? Edits. I don't want to be on the old steady stroke, and I want a really big spacing. And see, I would go in. Oh, it ended up being 0. That's what it did. Oh, and then my strength here. Okay, am I painting at all? Yes, it's just that went back to 0. Alright, so now just erase that. Smaller brush. And I just come in here and do stuff like this, you know? Just paint kind of across it. I don't even really need to try to follow the letters. Okay, and then, you know, stuff like this, I can throw dirt in there. And it does, it helps sell the whole thing, because where you had geometric details with dirt in the cracks, now you've got bump details with dirt in the cracks. So taking a moment to go in and do this kind of thing can actually really sell the effect. Okay. It really comes in handy for making it look like that's actually there. You can do the same thing here, just like say on the tops of the Winchester part here, where the dirt would settle. here and there, but no real dirt in the major flat points. Okay, just in the dip parts. See what I'm saying? It looks good, right? I mean, it doesn't have to look, you know, it's not perfect. You do the same kind of thing here. I really could have swore that my strength was lower than that. You know what the problem is? This here. Now I can go back to scratching at it. Okay, just follow this kind of pattern here. All right, again, I'm getting rid of that. I'm not gonna. Real light on that guy. Just very light. And it does, it helps. It can do you favors. Can even work here on the metal. I'm going to kick up the strength just a little bit for this because it's quite hard to see, but that's fine. That I'll just kind of scroll across it. I don't really. Oh, and I do want to do one last thing, and that is isolate this guy like this. Now here's where you'll notice what I did in the unwrap. Notice the difference in resolution of the dirt here and the dirt here. See? It's quite a bit more dramatic difference here. And you can kind of use it to your advantage, but sometimes you gotta fill in. Okay, and then I'll do one last thing. Just call that color. And let's not use a stamp. Let's go with a bright ass red. And I will go pretty small brush here. Kind of hard to tell because I can't really zoom in on this thing. I wish I could. Okay, and now I can erase. See, just get a little bit of red out there. You can't see it from here because of the lighting and stuff. Can't even see it from here. You can see it at certain angles, like right there. Pops in. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's so small, but the game will have a different view altogether, plus it'll be full screen, so it should work. And I may want to fake a safety. I do need to end this video. Dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it. But like these things are so minor. The other thing I could do is shrink that in and then make that hold control, you know. It's not very centered. I'll just leave it like that, and then blurring is too heavy. So minor things. Actually, that would be on the front, but so there we go. All right, hit pause. Signing off for this part. When I come back, I'm gonna actually do a little bit more to it. Also got to do the scope, right? The scope. So we'll do the scope, and we'll maybe try some sculpt details and see what we get. So thanks for watching.